Can you believe that Iron Man has actually turned into a zombie? Captain America has also become a man-eating monster. Almost the entire Avengers have fallen. Scarlet Witch has even transformed into the Zombie Queen, leading an army of walkers to seize infinite energy. An epic battle comparable to the Battle of Endgame thus begins. Before the story starts, let's first explain the background. Marvel's zombie universe began with an accidental cross-dimensional contact. In order to find his wife Janet Van Dyne, who was trapped in the quantum realm, Hank Pym delved deep into the dimensional rift, only to find that his wife had already been infected with an unknown zombie virus, and turned into an irrational, man-eating monster. The bitten Pym returned to Earth with the virus, triggering a chain of infections in the laboratory. Within a few days, the virus spread rapidly through scratching and biting. The most deadly thing is that the super genes in the Marvel universe didn't resist the virus. Instead, they made the zombie heroes possess both superpowers and cannibalistic instincts. The superheroes who once upheld justice, collectively became destroyers of civilization, eventually leading to the collapse of human social structure, and the complete failure of morality and law. Only a few super second generations survived. At this time, the second generation Hawkeye, the fourth generation Ms. Marvel, and Ironheart, were wandering around the city with a patched-together Iron Man suit named Friday, searching for supplies. Suddenly, the sound of a warplane came from the sky. Ironheart recognized it as a 36XT model Quinjet, so the group chased after it immediately. They figured there must be a lot of equipment inside the plane. Ironheart received a signal from the cockpit, and found that the pilot had hidden something in his stomach. Since this thing was so important that he swallowed it, the group was determined to dig it out and check. Because Ms. Marvel lost the game of rock paper scissors, she had to hold back her disgust and dig out that unknown object.
What is this?
An arrow shot into Friday's head, and Friday immediately protected the damaged warplane. Just as the second generation Hawkeye was about to stick her head out to observe, another arrow shot over. They crouched down and left the warplane. Friday gave a thumbs up to signal that it was okay, only that its system was overloaded and needed to be shut down for repairs. The three of them escaped while carrying Friday. As for the shooter hiding on a high place, it was none other than Zombie Hawkeye. The second generation Hawkeye recognized his trick arrows at a glance, but unfortunately, there was no time to say hello to her idol at this moment. In the evening, the three found an empty house to rest in. Ironheart was studying the device dug out of the zombie's stomach. This thing is a transmitter. It's also a subspace amplifier for interstellar communication. It wasn't originally this size, someone must have shrunk it, but who could shrink a subspace transmitter down to the size of a candy ball? Ironheart pointed out that the firmware of this device uses location-related quantum encryption, which is linked to shield codes. She needs a motherboard to crack it, but based on the interpreted data, this seems to be part of the Life Chance program, the final effort to save the Earth and rid it of the zombie plague. So it's best to send it to a SHIELD base. However, SHIELD's network is in shambles. Fortunately, Ironheart once received a signal from Ohio. Although leaving the city rashly is dangerous, as long as there's even a glimmer of hope to save people, they have to send the transmitter to where it needs to go. After the three made up their minds, they immediately loaded all their supplies onto the Uhura, and set off for Ohio overnight. Meanwhile, Okoye had already become the leader of the zombie army. In case some friends have forgotten who she is, Okoye is the supreme commander of the Wakandan Royal Guard, a key supporting character who runs through the Black Panther series, and the main storyline of The Avengers. Now she's finally in charge. At this moment, the super second generation had no idea how powerful an enemy they were up against. They chatted and laughed as they traveled. Ironheart suddenly slammed on the brakes. A semicircular crater had been blown into the mountains ahead. No one could tell what kind of disaster could have blown apart half a mountain. The three drove for a long time, not seeing a single soul, until that night, when lightning flashed and thunder roared in the distance. They soon noticed that these storms were approaching, moving far faster than ordinary clouds. Ironheart reacted quickly and slammed on the accelerator to speed up. Lightning exploded right behind the vehicle. Just as the Uhura was hit by energy and knocked over, Ms. Marvel quickly deployed a shield. The three climbed out of the cabin, only to find Friday missing. Before Ironheart could call it back, a blinding bolt of lightning struck toward them. They had to abandon Friday and flee first. It seemed then that the semicircular crater must have also been caused by a lightning strike. The three peeked out from behind cover to observe the front, and noticed that there seemed to be people fighting in the clouds. But they were too far away to make out clearly. They focused intently, not noticing the zombies approaching from behind. In the blink of an eye, the three were surrounded by the zombie army. They formed a formation, determined to fight their way out. At this critical moment, Friday also appeared just in time, and had regained its combat capabilities. Just then, the two powerful figures in the sky descended to the ground and continued their battle. The super second generation fled as quickly as possible, but the second generation Hawkeye noticed that the non-zombie side seemed to be injured. She couldn't stand by and watch, so she simply fired the trick arrow she had picked up earlier.
Shit.
Ms. Marvel rushed over to save the person without hesitation, but was also knocked down by the Mohawk zombie. Ironheart threw the transmitter to Friday, telling her to take Ms. Marvel and leave first. Friday placed Ms. Marvel in a safe spot, and told her to keep running west. She had already lost one owner, and couldn't afford to lose a second. After saying that, Friday returned to the battlefield. As for Ms. Marvel, she had to keep running to protect the transmitter, but the lightning kept chasing after her. At the critical moment, a ray of light shone, and Ms. Marvel lost consciousness instantly. In her dream, she saw Ironheart, the second-generation Hawkeye, and a fleeting image of the zombie version of Scarlet Witch. The next second, she woke up from the dream, and it turned out that Blade had saved her. Blade explained that the place they had just been in was called the Valley of the Broken Gods. Two infinitely powerful entities couldn't defeat each other, and would only pause their battle when outsiders approached. In any case, Ms. Marvel couldn't go back to that dangerous valley. Blade was willing to take her to Ohio. Along the way, Blade kept mentioning Khonshu, the Egyptian moon god. He also said that Khonshu's avatar had died during the plague, and now, Khonshu's divine consciousness was attached to him. Therefore, when he talked to himself, he was actually talking to Khonshu inside him. It took the two some time to reach Ohio, but as soon as they entered, they were blocked by a large group of zombies. A questioning voice came from behind the wall of zombies, telling them to state their purpose. Ms. Marvel quickly stated that she was heading to the Northern Research Institute. The zombies then moved to both sides, clearing a path for the two to pass through. At the end of the path stood a group of people: Melina the Iron Maiden, the second-generation Black Widow Yelena, and the Red Guardian, Melina, who was leading the group, swiped on a tablet, and the zombies automatically closed ranks. Ms. Marvel couldn't help but ask how this worked. Melina explained that they had injected the zombies with a neural agent originally developed to control humans. Unexpectedly, it worked even better on zombies. Ms. Marvel took out the transmitter, saying it was part of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s plan to stop the plague, but we don't know how it works without a S.H.I.E.L.D. motherboard. The Red Guardian, standing nearby, said in delight, "We just happen to have a S.H.I.E.L.D. motherboard." Ms. Marvel thought to herself, well, obviously, otherwise, why would I have come to Ohio? Melina pointed out that the transmitter emits encrypted subspace frequencies, which can contact a spacefaring group called the Nova Corps. S.H.I.E.L.D. believed the Nova Corps possessed technology capable of fixing Earth's chaos. However, the fallout from the Wakanda incident filled our atmosphere with various signals, preventing radio waves from entering or exiting. Therefore, the transmission must come from outside the atmosphere. It's likely that before S.H.I.E.L.D. could carry out this plan, their base was invaded by zombies. They must have used PIM particles to shrink the transmitter, so they could smuggle it out. In any case, Ironheart and the second-generation Hawkeye were right earlier. This device has the potential to change everything. It needs to be sent outside the atmosphere to work.
Can you go to space, Khonshu man? Shh. Quiet. They have found us.
As soon as the words fell, Okoye appeared. Blade explained that she was now a subordinate of Zombie Wanda. Standing beside Okoye were, respectively, Hawkeye, Abomination, Ghost, and Captain America, who only had half his body left. A zombie army followed behind them. Melina activated her own zombie army. The two sides immediately engaged in a fierce battle. Smoke from the explosions covered the battlefield. Several people stared nervously at the front. Could it be that all the enemies had been wiped out just like that? Of course, things were not that simple. The zombie army's attack had only just begun. They easily broke through Sector 94. Yelena, Blade, and Ms. Marvel hurried over to stop them. At this moment, the half-bodied Captain America was crawling through the ventilation duct. The Red Guardian rubbed his fists in anticipation. He had long wanted to fight the famous Captain America. The Red Guardian stared intently at the ceiling, but unexpectedly, Captain America launched a surprise attack from underground. Immediately after, the zombie army poured in. Ms. Marvel blocked them with her shield, fighting alongside Yelena. As for Captain America, he lived up to his name even with only half his body left. His combat power wasn't to be underestimated. The Red Guardian was hit in the crotch by him, and couldn't help but let out a scream. It seemed that zombification had indeed had a certain impact. Otherwise, Captain America would never have resorted to such despicable tactics. The Red Guardian seized the opportunity to grab him, and slammed him to the ground with a back suplex. Finally, he smashed this half-bodied Captain America into a pulp, but the soldiers holding the front line soon couldn't hold on anymore. Ghost swept in like a gust of wind. and broke through their defense line in no time. Ordinary humans couldn't resist Ghost's attack. Melina had to activate Plan 42, fighting while retreating, to help Ms. Marvel and the others leave with the transmitter. Melina closed the security door and chose to stay behind.
Come on.
Even though Melina had controlled most of the zombies, however, Okoye didn't give her a chance to escape. Blade sensed the enemies approaching, and instantly jumped behind Yelena to kick away the zombies. Right after that, he put on an amazing solo show, slicing the zombies into a pile of minced flesh. There was no time to waste, so the four got in the car and left immediately. Yelena took the opportunity to detonate the bomb and successfully shook off the zombies. It was just that the home they once relied on had been destroyed, and next, they needed to get a spaceship. Shang-Chi and Katie appeared, both wearing parking attendant uniforms. They were being chased by all kinds of monsters in the city. From time to time, giant zombies would catch people and bite them. The entire urban area was in complete chaos, and the eye of this disaster was none other than Pym Labs. Shang-Chi pulled Katie and stumbled forward. As corpses fell from the rooftops, they finally managed to run back to Chinatown, only to find that it had long been reduced to a sea of flames. Katie was worried about her mother, but Shang-Chi held her back. Immediately after, FBI agent Jimmy Woo appeared, and led the two to evacuate to a safe place. But the zombies in the city were like cockroaches, impossible to kill off completely. Moreover, due to the leak from Pym Labs, giant zombies were multiplying everywhere. At the critical moment, a group of fighter jets arrived, spraying gunfire at the zombies. A man saw Shang-Chi and jumped down to the ground. Judging from the 10 rings around his arms, this person must be Shang-Chi's father, Wenwu. He wanted to take his son and escape quickly, but Shang-Chi refused to leave others to die and insisted on staying to help. The consequence of this decision was that he was bitten by a zombie. Watching the virus spread rapidly, Wenwu immediately used the 10 rings to bind Shang-Chi's arm, while he himself was swarmed and devoured by a pile of zombies. Shang-Chi had no time to grieve. When the Merchant of Death pulled him into the plane in one swift move, all he could do now was fight with all his strength to survive, so that his father's sacrifice wouldn't be in vain. 5 years later, by this time, Shang-Chi and Katie were already navigating the post-apocalyptic world with ease. No longer the kids who were helpless in the face of zombies back then. They rode across the desert, having to deal not only with zombies, but also local bandits and Skrulls. Yet their team was as solid as a fortress. No one could take anything from them. At this moment, the group arrived at the New Orleans checkpoint, a maritime city. This place was one of the last safe havens on Earth.
Hi there. We're just, here to check in.
You bring a tribute?
Cows. Lots of them.
To stay, one had to exchange offerings. Halfway there, the group suddenly ran into the Red Guardian. As soon as he saw Shang-Chi's arm, he shouted zombie. Both groups immediately got into a combat stance, but before the conflict could escalate, the local leader, the Baron, appeared. A soldier beside him quietly reported to the leader, Shang-Chi and his group have brought a lot of cattle. They want to seek refuge here. The Baron recognized Shang-Chi's bracelet, and had heard of these heroes of the wasteland. But he had always hated superheroes, for they always had dangerous ideas behind their superpowers and silly masks. Shang-Chi didn't get angry upon hearing this. We'll do any work as long as we can stay, he said. The Baron, considering they had cattle, agreed to let Shang-Chi and his group board the ship. It turned out the so-called maritime city was a giant steel ship. They had only just set sail when Baron Zemo gathered everyone to give an inspiring speech saying things like, "We will soon enter open waters, leave these desolate lands behind, and reach a true utopia. We must mourn those who sacrifice themselves every moment." Just a bunch of nonsense. After Zemo finished his rambling, the giant ship finally submerged. The kitchen had already prepared dinner. Everyone got their meals and ate just like they did back in their school days. During this time, Ms. Marvel told these new companions about the transmitter. If they could send the transmitter into space, it could send a signal to the Nova Corps. Blade remembered that there was a spaceship in New Asgard, so they planned to get a ride with Zemo to New Asgard. However, the sea wasn't as safe as they had imagined. A large group of zombies was gathering in the direction of the ship, and Okoye's army had also arrived at the dock. Late at night, the people in the cabin were woken up by a loud bang. Soon after, an iron gate fell at the door, accompanied by the mechanical voice, "Prisoner ejection authorized." It turned out Zemo had long known there were zombies at the bottom of the sea. To ensure the safety of the voyage, every time he went to sea, he would eject passengers into the water, first feeding those zombies to full, so they wouldn't attack rashly. Ms. Marvel and the others were ejected into the seabed. She immediately used her shield to block the seawater, while Yelena spotted a figure in the distance. The next second, that person crashed over like a cannonball, sending Ms. Marvel and her companions back into the cabin, and this man with immense strength was no one else but the zombified Namor the Submariner. Zemo ordered his men to activate the Hulk containment cell, trapping Namor inside first, but the underwater zombies soon broke through the door, and the soldiers on the ship fired wildly. Shang-Chi handed Katie a few bracelets, and the two joined the battle together. Yelena, Ms. Marvel, and the others also fought hard against the enemies. Seeing the situation was bad, Zemo took his men and hid in the escape pod, leaving these superheroes to die. At this moment, seawater was constantly pouring into the cabin. Yelena hacked the security door and led everyone to escape. Unexpectedly, Namor broke open the containment cell. Shang-Chi and Katie hurried to prop up the iron door with the 10 rings, otherwise, they would be crushed into meat patties. But the security door was about to crack. They fell into the escape pod. Yelena grabbed Zemo, asking why the escape pod hadn't activated. The latter explained that the system must have been manually restarted, and the switch was in the nearby control room. Upon hearing this, Yelena rushed over immediately. Namor's combat power was simply too strong. Shang-Chi's team suffered heavy losses. The transmitter in Ms. Marvel's hand was also knocked to the ground, just as everyone was about to hold on no longer. Ms. Marvel picked up the transmitter to distract Namor's attention. As the latter pounced forward, she punched straight into his mouth. Shang-Chi and Katie also grabbed Namor from behind. With the joint efforts of several people, Ms. Marvel took the opportunity to enlarge her fist shield, successfully blowing up Namor's head. Meanwhile, Yelena restarted the escape pod on her end, making sure her companions could evacuate safely. But she had to stay behind to control it manually to share the fate of the ship. Poor Red Guardian, having lost two of the most important people in a row. Now, the only hope supporting them was to go to New Asgard and find the spaceship. 5 years ago, back then, Spider-Man, Ant-Man, and Black Panther planned to use the Mind Stone and Wakandan technology to cure the zombies on Earth, but they were stopped by Thanos. For Thanos, in his pursuit of infinite power, wanted to seize the Mind Stone. Although his power was unimaginable, his infected brain made it hard for him to concentrate. The three were about to take the chance to get rid of him, but Black Panther soon discovered that zombie Thanos had the ability to learn. What's more, he improved at an astonishing speed and could even control the zombie horde. If this went on, he would become unstoppable. Just as Spider-Man and the others were outnumbered and overwhelmed, Thor, Korg, and Rocket arrived just in time. Although their entrance was extremely spectacular, they were defeated by Thanos in the very next second. Rocket's body was even completely destroyed, leaving only his skull to fall back to the ground. After that, Thanos flipped the entire Golden City upside down, revealing the molten vibranium inside the reactor core. Spider-Man gave Black Panther a look, and the two charged forward one after another. Spider-Man used his webs to yank Thor's axe and swung it at Thanos. Taking advantage of Thanos' distracted attention, he dragged a huge boulder straight toward Thanos, but this damage was negligible. Black Panther reached out to Spider-Man and took the Mind Stone. He clenched his fist and used the stone's power to severely injure Thanos. Thanos punched Black Panther away, and used the power of the Space Tornado to snatch the Mind Stone from Black Panther's hand. Now he could easily destroy half of all life in the universe. At this critical moment, Black Panther charged at Thanos, grabbed him, and jumped into the molten vibranium together. He saved the universe and countless lives. Unfortunately, the disaster wasn't over. The energy of the stones dissipated to the surrounding area, distorting the fabric of reality. Just as Spider-Man thought he was doomed, he unexpectedly fell into a magical portal along with Ant-Man, and was rescued by the kind magicians of Kamartaj. Zombie Wanda had almost accumulated enough power to threaten Paris. They had to be on high alert to face Wanda's arrival. The escape pod was washed ashore. Jimmy Woo collapsed to the ground, vomiting non-stop, and swore he would never get on a boat again anytime soon. New Asgard was right in front of them. A zombie staggered over on the beach. Before they could even decide who would deal with it, a spear pierced straight through the zombie's head. Valkyrie stood on a high spot, asking if they had an invitation. "This is a sanctuary for gods. Mortals can't just walk in," she said. Upon hearing this, Blade channeled the moon god Khonshu. Valkyrie's attitude softened as expected.
Who is she talking to?
I have no idea.
Maybe his imaginary friend is real?
It turned out mortals couldn't see Khonshu's manifestation. It was all thanks to having a god with them that the group managed to enter New Asgard. The interior of the temple was decorated like something out of Dungeons and Dragons. It was truly breathtaking. Faint commotion could be heard through a door. It turned out that while the world outside was in an apocalypse, a grand celebration was taking place inside the temple. These gods really couldn't care less about things that didn't affect them. As for Thor, he was just sitting on his throne. Ms. Marvel held the transmitter and asked to borrow a spaceship from him, but the current Thor was dejected and dispirited, like a walking corpse. The true leader of New Asgard had already become Wanda. Upon hearing this, Ms. Marvel immediately got into a fighting stance, and the Asgardians quickly grabbed their weapons too. Wanda, however, looked radiant and healthy. Nothing like a zombie. Wanda explained that while she had indeed been infected, she had cured herself using her ability to rewrite reality. Her talent could even restore the entire world. But the Wakanda incident had released infinite energy, that power had been stolen, and her own abilities had been suppressed along with it. To defeat the one who had stolen the infinite energy, she had to build an army. As soon as she finished speaking, the divine warriors who were feasting suddenly started vomiting violently. Wanda lifted her magic. It turned out the piles on the tables weren't food at all, but the dismembered limbs and flesh of zombies. She had used an illusion to turn the Asgardian warriors into her own zombie puppets. Ms. Marvel was the first to react, sending Wanda flying with a punch. The zombie army swarmed forward all at once. Zemo was just about to complain, when a zombie crushed his heart in the next second. As everyone was busy saving themselves, a large horde of zombies charged at Thor on his throne. Ms. Marvel distracted herself to knock a few zombies away for him, and Thor finally opened his eyes. When he saw the battle unfolding before him, the Merchant of Death saved Jimmy Woo at the critical moment, but a zombie broke his leg in return, then threw him to the ground, smashing him to pieces. The enraged Jimmy Woo was focused solely on revenge, but was ambushed by a zombie from behind and became their meal. The zombies surrounded Thor like maniacs. Ms. Marvel stopped the furious Valkyrie, telling her to first take her to find the spaceship. The group fled the hall in a hurry. Ms. Marvel used her shield to temporarily block the door, but it wouldn't hold for long. The zombie warriors soon burst through the door and chased after them. They didn't even bother climbing the stairs, and jumped down from the high platform in a chaotic rush. It had to be said that gods were much more durable than humans. The group didn't dare stop for a second and hurried toward the spaceship. Shang-Chi and Katie escorted everyone safely onto the ship, but the Red Guardian, who had eaten zombie flesh earlier, was already infected. Ms. Marvel had to leave him behind. The remaining 5 boarded the spaceship and prepared to leave, but Wanda's power was unexpectedly too strong. She held the ship in place, making it impossible to move. Fortunately, Thor finally stepped up at the critical moment. Everyone was thrilled to see the Avenger in action, their hearts rising and falling with the progress of the battle. However, Thor alone couldn't defeat Wanda. At most, he could hold her back to let the spaceship escape. Valkyrie understood Thor's intention, and flew toward space without hesitation. Now that they were far from the interfering signals in the atmosphere, Ms. Marvel immediately tried to contact the Nova Corps, but as soon as she pressed the button, a large number of alien spaceships appeared right after. It should be noted that even the fastest signal would take several weeks to reach another galaxy. It was likely that these alien spaceships had been waiting here for a long time. As soon as the words fell, the Nova Corps sent a warning, stating that Earth had been declared a dead world. Anyone attempting to escape would be destroyed. It turned out the Nova Corps had known about this all along. They just had no intention of helping. Instead, they wanted to completely quarantine Earth and let it perish. Valkyrie hurriedly flew the spaceship to escape, with the Nova Corps chasing closely behind and firing relentlessly. Thanks to Ms. Marvel covering the ship with her shield, the group narrowly avoided death in outer space. However, the shield quickly shattered during the high-speed descent. The group fell into the sea and lost consciousness. When Ms. Marvel and the others woke up, they saw Spider-Man and Ant-Man, who only had his head left. It turned out that Ms. Marvel and her group had also fallen into Kamartaj. This place was the legendary hidden sect, where the Ancient One and her many disciples practiced. They secretly guarded the piece of the real dimension. Earlier, when the Infinity Stone shattered, their energy raged like a hurricane, leaving destruction in its wake. To save the world from this disaster, the Hulk absorbed all the infinite energy into himself, becoming a vessel that contained the infinite power. Wanda had set her sights on seizing this power. She had now gathered an army powerful enough to defeat the Hulk. The final showdown was imminent. Everyone had to unite to fight against the zombies. That night, Wanda led her army to find the Hulk. Zombies swarmed forward, and the Hulk threw a casual punch. The infinite energy contained within him instantly swept away the tide of zombies. This punch truly achieved the effect of overcoming a great force with a small one. Wanda unleashed Zemo's giant steel ship. Seawater mixed with zombies poured down on the Hulk. As expected, the water restricted his movements. Several giant zombies took the opportunity to smash into the Hulk. The Asgardian god zombies joined in the attack too. They were much more difficult to deal with than ordinary zombies. To make matters worse, Wanda also deployed several warplanes. The Hulk, for all his strength, was really struggling to hold on. Wanda moved in immediately, trying to siphon his power. Unexpectedly, Ms. Marvel and the others arrived. Like divine intervention, a great battle was about to break out. The scene was almost on par with the Avengers Battle of Endgame. Everyone hacked wildly through the pile of zombies, dispatching them as easily as cutting vegetables. The mages cast spells that blew up a group of zombies at once. Spider-Man swung on his webs, weaving through the zombie horde, snapping the necks of dozens of zombies in an instant. It was an extremely satisfying battle. The warplanes, disrupted by the Mages also fired at the zombies. Thanks to everyone's help, the wounds on the Hulk's body were gradually healing. Hawkeye suddenly spat out 2 zombie bugs. These creatures were so tiny that ordinary attacks could hardly hit them. The zombie bugs dodged Shang-Chi's magical rings, and he punched them to the ground. Blade immediately stepped on them, only for the bugs to grow hundreds of times larger in an instant. The giant bugs clenched their fists and smashed at the Hulk.
Why you hitting yourself?
Ms. Marvel was busy dealing with another one, but that monster also grew to a huge size soon after. Fortunately, Valkyrie stepped in front of Ms. Marvel just in time, only to be punched to the ground by a giant zombie. But she not only survived, she even crawled into the zombie's body and blew its head apart from the inside. As the battle reached a stalemate, Wanda tried to hypnotize Ms. Marvel but failed, so she unleashed her final trump card. Former allies like the Red Guardian, Melina, and Yelena had all been turned into Wanda's zombie puppets. Faced with these familiar faces, everyone couldn't bring themselves to fight with all their strength. Immediately after, Zombie Thor made a dramatic appearance. Due to the huge gap in combat power between the two sides, everyone couldn't spare the effort to protect the Hulk. Thor quickly charged over, wielding his hammer. Fortunately, the Hulk's injuries had already fully healed. He used the infinite power to defeat Thor. Ms. Marvel was just about to breathe a sigh of relief when she saw Wanda launch a sneak attack amid the chaos, plunging her hand into the Hulk's body. At the same time, Shang-Chi, the mages, and the others also fell victim to her. In despair, Ms. Marvel lunged at Wanda.
Kamala, look around. The suffering. Save them.
The smiling faces of her companions flashed through Ms. Marvel's mind. She couldn't help but take Wanda's hand. Infinite energy surged into her body in an instant. The entire world began to reshape itself. When Ms. Marvel woke up, she found herself back in New York. Ironheart and the second-generation Hawkeye came to see her as usual. The apocalyptic scenes of the past felt like a nightmare. Now the dream was over. Everything had returned to normal. Yet the street scene in front of her suddenly began to distort. The ugly truth was revealed beneath the peaceful facade. Ms. Marvel was living in an illusion created by Wanda. Whether Ms. Marvel could wake up from the illusion before her, the film ended with an open ending. It seems Marvel's focus has been fully placed on building up the younger generation, and even its derivative animations are no exception. In fact, the plot of 4 episodes could have been condensed into 2. With almost all characters on the verge of death, the story still ends abruptly to set up a second season. There's no denying the exquisite production quality of the visuals, but the development of the main cast is truly a failure. Each character's sacrifice and development feel superficial. The character designs are unrealistic. How can they win over the audience? Moreover, Wanda is like a universal brick used wherever she's needed. She's busy playing the role of the source of all evil in various derivative works. As for how the screenwriters will fix the plot next, we can only wait for the second season together.